Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
It gets so hard to keep track and even have time to read all the trending topics on the web. Now there is a new app to help with all of those problems. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin. You can even follow Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you out loud. And guess what? They have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. The Movie Wire is now a featured podcast on the Newsly app. Download and use Newsly for free now. The link will be in the description of this episode or the podcast. You can also use one of my promo codes that you will find in the description as well to get you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, download Newsly today. Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We have a fantastic lineup this week that includes the epic conclusion to the Jurassic Park franchise, and that is with Jurassic World Dominion. And we will be joined with the kids' perspective on it with returning guest critic, my daughter, Brooklyn. The Netflix original movie by Happy Madison Productions, Hustle, starring Adam Sandler. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
You love this game? I mean, love it with your whole heart. Because if you don't, let's not even bother. Let's not open that door. They're just going to slam it right in our face.
Look, I be riding through my old hood, but I'm in my new whip.
I love this game. I live this game. There's 1,000 other guys waiting in the wings who are obsessed with this game. Obsession's going to be talent every time. You got all the talent in the world, but are you obsessed? Let's face it, it's you against you out there.
Look at me.
When you walk on that court,
Look at me.
you have to think, I am the best guy out there.
Hey.
So let me ask you again, do you love this game?
Look at me.
Streaming on Netflix now is yet another Happy Madison production movie starring Adam Sandler as Stanley Sugarman, Queen Latifah as Stanley's wife Teresa, and Juancho Hernangomez, who plays Bo Cruz. Hustle is about Stanley, who's down on his luck after being fired as a player in the NBA. Stanley becomes a pro basketball scout for the 76ers, and for the first time in a long while, Stanley discovers a unique talent playing in a park outside Madrid. Here he discovers Bo Cruz, who's about to give Stanley a new drive and purpose in his life to groom Bo for the NBA. Sandler has always been an anomaly to me. His early films, such as Billy Madison, The Waterboy, Big Daddy, The Wedding Singer, and Little Nicky, they weren't great films, but they're great guilty pleasure films if you're having a bad day and just need some laughs. Sandler can be funny when the material is good and written just for him. Ever since the film I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, his material to work with started becoming very weak, and I'm sure his film Jack and Jill was the final straw with a lot of his fans, with the exception of Pixels. I'll put that in there, which I actually quite enjoyed. Sandler can be a very talented actor, especially when it comes to serious roles. He has proven that he has the skill to be pretty damn good in leading serious dramatic roles. Let's take one of my favorite films of 2019, Uncut Gems. This showed a side of Sandler we haven't seen before. Even on past serious roles like Reign Over Me, Spanglish, and Punch Drunk Love, that had a hint of some dry humor on it. But now Uncut Gems is Sandler's more serious, anxiety-driven, stressful movies, and now comes Hustle, which is a warm-hearted sports flick that doesn't follow the same exact formula as we see from a lot of sports films. It stands on its own and makes its characters a main focal point to the film, and not the predictable big game that we see in most sports movies. Most sports films give a false sense of motivation that insults the audience by tricking them into cheering for an event and not the characters, where the writers spend most of their time on a couple of paragraphs of dialogue at the end where we have the coach or the main character lift up the audience with a cheesy motivational speech and words that tries to inspire the audience in the final act of the film. Whereas the rest of the film's dialogue usually sucks and the writers banks on those couple of paragraphs of dialogue to give a false sense if the movie you just watched was good or not. But you will always remember the coach's big speech at the end of most of these movies, but not so much any of the other dialogue in the film. Hustle is different from all these other films. Now, the film doesn't have a lot of lines that will stick with you after the viewing, but what it does have is interesting characters with perfect chemistry, especially with Stanley and Bo. Their relationship doesn't start off perfect, but Stanley and Bo takes us on a journey of development between their relationship. It's like a hidden camera into their life. The characters and writers don't insult the audience by over-dramatizing the dialogue, and its dialogue feels real, and therefore the actors seem to have real conversations with each other to progress the story in a natural way. I give credit to Kim Coleman, who was a casting director here. Even though it was a given Adam Sandler was going to be in this movie since it's a Happy Madison production, but more so the smart casting of Queen Latifah, who is strong but sweet, and especially Juancho Hernangomez, who absolutely steals the show in this film. Whenever he is on screen, he invites the audience to decide for themselves how they feel about him. He delivers his lines in a quiet, subtle, and a very sweetly way that makes us just fall in love with him as a human and want to root for him naturally. Most of the screen time is shared by Sandler and Hernangomez, and the two share a beautiful friendship and understanding of each other's internal conflicts. The film takes us on Sugarman and Cruz's journey together with spot-on pacing to really have the audience enjoy the dynamic of the characters, where the filmmakers not only want us to root for the sports star, but for Stanley too. When one of them shares life's win, we feel the win for both of them without any forced or fake dialogue. Now, Sandler does a fantastic job in this movie. He plays a very nice guy, and it can show that his personal life is transported into this character. Now, is it one of his best roles? No, but Uncut Gems is an unfair comparison. Uncut Gems will always be top of my list for one of Sandler's best films, but this will definitely come up second. Comedy is near and dear to Sandler's heart, and I doubt we will see him stop making comedy movies since he is slated for another Netflix film, Murder Mystery 2. Yippee. But I really hope that he can realize how good he really is when it comes to his dramatic roles, and continue down this road and not settle for films like Herbie Halloween. I'm giving Hustle 3 stars. Before I get into the next review, I just want to talk about a podcast I've been listening to, and that's the Cultworthy Podcast. There are a lot of movie podcasts out there, me included. A lot of those podcasts will cover topics that are trending in social media, and they'll take an hour to 2 hours to talk about it. And I know I cover what's new in theatrical releases and streaming releases, but as Antonio once put it, he covers the old, I cover the new. There are so many stories in film, and this is a must listen to for not only film lovers, but for those that just want to find a film to watch. Take a listen to this.
The Cultworthy Podcast. Your host, Antonio Palacios, will guide you week by week through a bevy of cult favorites, obscure cinema, and hidden gems. Listen to us on your favorite platforms or follow us on thecultworthy.com. The Cultworthy Podcast.
You look just like Blue. Is she your mother? Do you remember the first time you saw a dinosaur? First time you see them, it's like a miracle. You never get used to it.
I promise you, I am gonna get her back.
Everybody hold on to somebody.
That's another plane, right?
Not exactly.
Everybody good?
No!
Why do they always have to go bigger?
As the great Dr. Ian Malcolm from the original film once said, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. This is a quote the filmmakers should have recited while making Jurassic World Dominion. Now, this film is a tough one to review. I want to compare it to the original. I want to review it holistically as a franchise. I want to review it as an entertainment property. But my review is going to be about this as a standalone film, but there will be some comparisons throughout the review. Indulge me for just 1 second, as I do want to put an idea in your head. Let's take the first Jurassic Park, and the more recent last in the franchise, Jurassic World Dominion, and forget everything in between. I would ask the question, which one is better when it comes to filmmaking? A majority will say the first one. Let's not kid ourselves. The first one is better out of all of them, I would say, argumentatively. It is a rarity that sequels outdo their predecessors, let alone the sixth one of the franchise 29 years later. But why couldn't the final installment at least hold a candle to the original? If you watch the two films back to back, you will notice a drastic style and change from the sound, music, practical effects, the pacing, and most importantly, the thing that made the original film so wonderful, which is the sense of wonderment. The original took its time to let the audience take what they were witnessing and treats the dinosaurs not as props, but as characters of their own. Jurassic Park made the characters just as memorable as the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park that we saw on screen, along with the practical effects and animatronic dinosaurs that look just as good as the computer-generated ones from 1993's version. Spielberg doesn't use a lot of hard cuts or fast-moving camera shots. He went all in with confidence to make the practical effects look as real as can be. He took his time with the film. He gave a sense of wonderment to the characters, the scenes, the music, and of course, the dinosaurs. There is no doubt, no matter what critics say, no matter what word of mouth says, that the Jurassic Park movies is an event for dinosaur lovers, lovers of the novel, lovers of the original movie, and a film that a lot of us grew up on. I still remember the release of the original film when I was 11 years old, standing in lines weekend over weekend for what seemed to be hours on end, only to have the usher come to the line and say the dreaded words, sold out. The word sold out became a trigger word for me while going to the theater because of this movie. The sure disappointment every weekend to find out we couldn't get tickets to this fantastic movie that everybody was seeing back in 1993. Then, after 3 weekends, my family tried again, and behold, I was holding a $5.15 ticket to what would not only be just a movie ticket, but something that would define my childhood for years to come. From encouraging me to read the novels, to collecting the action figures, to collecting every McDonald's Jurassic Park cup that they had, the film made me and encouraged me to read and gave me a love for it to this current day. And it created a memorable theater experience that I will always remember. I loved the movies even before viewing the original Jurassic Park, but I remember sitting in the theater and while watching the movie, there are two scenes that stuck with me. I still remember how I felt watching these two scenes. When we first saw the Brachiosaurus for the first time, the first real CGI dinosaur on a big screen, I remember I was sitting next to my grandmother, who rarely went to the movies, and I went with my parents and, of course, myself. And the minute my grandmother saw the dinosaur, she let out a very subtle but noticeable gasp. This is absolutely something that she has never seen before, especially not as a frequent moviegoer. The second scene in the original Jurassic Park is one that I still remember my reaction to this day, and that is when Dennis Nedry encounters the Dilophosaur, aka the Spitter. Not many are familiar with this dinosaur, and they weren't when the time the film came out, and what the dinosaur could do, and what it was about to do. It put a sense of curiosity in the audience and myself while watching it. The sound it makes before we see the appearance of the giant crest brought a tenseness to me. Then the moment Dennis Nedry makes it to the car, and a slight moment of silence until we hear the sound again, and a close-up of the Dilophosaur in an enclosed vehicle with no escape put a sense of terror in me. But it was an exciting feeling. Those of us that were around to see the first film in theaters have our own stories, but these two scenes really stuck with me. It gave me my first sense of terror, gave me my first sense of wonder. That's what made the first one so special. Now, let's fast forward to Jurassic World Dominion. The film brings back some of the original cast of Dr. Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum, Ellie Sattler, played by Laura Dern, Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill, Dr. Henry Wu, played by B.D. Wong, Lewis Doxon, who was originally played by Cameron Thor in the original Jurassic Park, has been replaced by Campbell Scott. The original actor and now real-time villain in real life is now a convicted sex offender who's convicted of lewd contact with a minor in 2016 and sentenced to a 6-year sentence, but has since now been released. He got released 2 years earlier than his sentence in 2019. Now Campbell Scott does an okay job with his replacement, since we don't have a lot of screen time with the original Dachshund to compare him to, and especially the character can change drastically in 29 years, but Campbell Scott does do a pretty good job as like a Steve Jobs kind of corporate scientist, technology guru lookalike. Jurassic World Dominion takes place 4 years after the destruction of Isla Nublar. Dinosaurs now live and coexist alongside humans all over the world. This fragile balance will reshape the future and determine once and for all whether human beings are to remain the apex predators on a planet they now share with history's most fearsome creatures in a new era. There is more to the plot, but for a non-spoiler review, that's where I'm going to leave it. The writers had to find a way to include the old cast in the new sequel. On paper, I could have seen what the writer's intent was, and I will give them an A for effort for creativity, but what's on paper doesn't necessarily end in a good result on screen. The end result of the movie feels sloppy and out of place as it tries to balance a jam-packed movie full of dinosaurs into its plot, and the movie's main plot kind of is the main focus of it, and it doesn't really surround the plot full of dinosaurs. The plot the writers came up with almost forces the dinosaurs to be second place to the plot they created. The use of hard cut scenes becomes more noticeable when it coincides with the scenes that tend to feel they're on speed. The whole movie with the use of hard cuts and rush scenes reminded me of a nervous teenager giving his first PowerPoint presentation in front of an audience and is just trying to rush through it to get things over with. This is where the film acts as a polar opposite to the original. Instead of getting to know our characters and taking screen time to appreciate the amazement of the dinosaurs on screen, we get quick moving shots where it's hard to make out and really appreciate the creatures we see. I can see this strategy working okay if it's the same dinosaurs we have seen over and over again in the Jurassic films, but the film is loaded with a lot of new species that fans have been demanding, and a returning dinosaur that I've been waiting for its return since it filled me with terror in the first film, and that's the Dilophosaurus. The film takes no time to have the audience admire these creatures. It's like they said, crap guys, we've got to add these dinosaurs in the last 4 sequels. Let's load them all up in just this one film and just say we had them in a Jurassic movie. Now, the amount of fast-moving camera movements and hard cuts could be since the CGI is not on par with the other Jurassic films. Not always, but most of the time. A lot of the shots of the dinosaurs are either extremely quick or extremely dark or in a very dark setting, or hidden in other ways. The film was directed by Colin Trevorrow, who directed the first Jurassic World. Watching this film compared to Trevorrow's original Jurassic World is almost like you're watching a completely different director. The original Jurassic World set the bar for all nostalgic-filled sequels or requels that came after. It had the right amount of nostalgia without using the original cast. It respected the art of wide-angle shots. It didn't rush scenes with dinosaurs, and we got up close and personal with the dinosaurs quite often. It was a respectable sequel to the franchise and a reboot, if you want to call it that. It followed the same recipe as the first Jurassic Park and added a couple more ingredients as it deemed fit to fill in the gaps. We had fewer dinosaurs in the original Jurassic World than we did in the following next 2 sequels, and people still enjoyed it. It amazes me still those sequels still aim to add more and more as the franchise gets bigger, with the studio probably thinking of bigger box office numbers. I can't speak for everybody, but I do think that audience would rather see quality over quantity. And it's like they said in the original Jurassic World, they want more teeth. The audiences don't want necessarily more teeth. We want a dinosaur film that is cool. The film was written again by Trevorrow and Emily Carmichael, whose biggest credits is, get this, Pacific Rim 2. After seeing her name in the credits, it made complete sense in the film I just witnessed. When it comes to the hyperactivity of the camera and hard cuts and the sloppy, non-memorable dialogue, it's like Trevorrow and Carmichael were doing a scrapbook of script piecing together bland words to make just one big piece of crap. I was getting worried during the movie for Dr. Sadler and Dr. Grant. I thought they were portraying their characters at an old age and are just way more mellow, sitting in the armchair at 8 p.m. enjoying a Lifetime movie. I was met with relief when they started facing dinosaurs and started to move quicker. So they are alive in this movie. Then I realized it's just bland cardboard writing. And I get it. The writing has to be quick and it has to be to the point to support the bloated number of things going on. The writing doesn't respect the characters of the original film, or Jurassic World as a matter of fact. The characters of the original, we don't get a moment of nostalgic emotion. Yes, they're there, but the film takes no moment to give the audience an awe moment or a proper reunion, where the dialogue points to the direction that some of the characters haven't seen each other in years or since the events of Jurassic Park. There is, again, a problem with this film when it comes to the sense of wonder. There is no wonder to what the characters have been up to. They just kind of meet and say, oh, we're doing another movie. The audience loves these characters. Why not give the audience what they want? A great, memorable reunion. Instead, we get an awkward, almost forced and rushed reunion between the characters. Neil, Dern, and Goldblum do their best with what they have, and they are still a pleasure to watch on screen. But the material, again, lacks in this department. The characters do start to have some fun with each other towards the end of the third act, but it feels too farce. With Malcolm eating in a moment of danger and the tone being dark, you can almost tell these were the first scenes most likely being filmed because the cast seems so happy together and excited to be part of the Jurassic Park franchise again. And then towards the beginning of the film, it just seems like they're already tired of being there. Trevorrow was interviewed when promoting the film and stated that there was a good mix of practical, animatronic dinosaurs and CGI usage. And this is what baffles me about the use of both in this film. And I'm a big fan of practical effects if it's done right. I think my standards may be too high after seeing Spielberg's use of both. When the use of animatronic dinosaurs is used in Dominion, it is absolutely apparent most of the time that Trevorrow's ensures we have some of the most focused shots on these dinosaurs. I say this in the nicest way possible with no disrespect to Trevorrow. You ain't no Spielberg. The animatronic dinosaurs in this look fake, they look sloppy, they look pieced together. There is no sense of wonder. You're just looking to see where the guy's hand is controlling the remote control. This department has and will always be Spielberg's forte, is the use of camera angles, shadows, practical effects, atmosphere, and color integration. Rants aside, the film does have its moments. There's a scene involving a Dimetrodon that is this generation's Dilophosaur to me, and it's one of the better dinosaur scenes in the movie. There is an entertainment factor in this film, don't get me wrong. The film does have dinosaurs, it does have a returning cast, it does have the formula to give a family experience of excitement and a good conversation afterwards about the action scenes. It does entertain. It's a fast movie that gives you your money's worth for 2.5-hour runtime. But if you are a hardcore Jurassic Park fan, you will be greatly disappointed. If you take your kids to it, and they are a Jurassic Park fan, I recommend, as I did, push them towards a junior novelization or even the original books, like I was with the original. Their imagination will be blown away by the imagery they get from the film and add it to the novel. There's also great side storybooks, including Jurassic World, The Evolution of Claire, by Tess Sharp, and Jurassic Park Dead Islands by Fabian Delage. Check those out. Those are some great side stories. The film, as an inclusion of the franchise, is a big disappointment. But, holistically as an individual film, it does its job at bare minimum when it comes to the entertainment value. Jurassic World Dominion will make a crap ton of money. I only hope we get more that will actually give us a real proper closing to the franchise. Just not this. If you see it in 3D, the 3D is pretty solid for the most part, better than most I've seen in a long time. But the normal problem with 3D is it tends to make things look darker and faster images harder to process. That doesn't work in this film's favor. But when the movie hits its still moments, it's a visually solid 3D presentation. At the end of the day, the film is a popcorn flick, so have a couple drinks, turn your brain off, keep your expectations really low, and you might have some fun with it. The dinosaur sequences will also entertain the younger audience. Mind you, there are some scary elements for younger audience to just bear in mind if you want to bring your kid into it. Do your research before you take your children to this movie. And I will leave you with this final thought. Am I the only one that is wondering where Billy is from Jurassic Park 3? This is the difference between all the films. At least Jurassic Park 3 had characters I liked enough to remember their names without effort. I challenge you to name one new character, without looking at IMDb in Jurassic World Dominion. That should tell you something about this film at the end of the day. The Jurassic World movies has almost become a joke upon itself. In the original movie, you hear the quote, "More teeth. We need scarier. More teeth." Now, I think the studio should have learned from its own mistakes. When you add more teeth, scarier, you modify things, you end up with a disaster. And that's exactly what the final installment of the Jurassic World trilogy ends up with, is you add more stuff, more teeth, pile into a movie, and you get an epic disaster. I'm giving Jurassic World Dominion 2 stars. And now it's time to bring in the kids' point of view on Jurassic World Dominion. She's been on the show numerous times giving her point of view on different family movies, and we're bringing her back to the show. I want every listener to welcome Brooklyn back to the show. Brooklyn, hello.
Hello.
All right, I cannot wait to hear your review on this one, but this one meant a little something more special to me because in 1993, I was 11 years old when I first got to watch the very first Jurassic Park, and now you're 11 years old, and you got to experience the very last Jurassic Park of this franchise. And you got to see all the original characters back together. I thought that was pretty cool. And to me, it meant a lot that you went with me to that movie to experience that with me. So I want to thank you. But don't you think that's kind of cool?
Yeah, pretty cool.
What did you think of the movie?
Well, it was pretty good, but also kind of corny. It's very, very corny.
Okay. So talk to me about corny. So what parts did you find corny without giving any spoilers away?
Well, it's very animatronic. I don't think they used any computers at all in that movie.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'd agree with you. And I think I said it in my review too, is the animatronic dinosaurs in this just look super sloppy and fake.
Yeah.
Did you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I really agree with that because they looked just like in the old movies, I'd be very happy with the movie. But not anymore because that's what happened.
Now, did you have, again, without giving anything away, is there any scene in this movie you thought was just cool or it was just kind of corny as you would put it? Is there one moment in this movie that stood out to you?
Yeah, there was actually. I think when they went in the laboratory and you know what part where all the, the stuff was there. I'm not going to say what, of course. They kind of, it was really funny part, but I can't tell you because spoiler. And,
we thank you for that.
Yes. It was one of my favorite parts in that because.
But you can't say it.
Yeah.
So you can't say your favorite part.
Yeah, not really. You'll see in the movie.
Okay, so there is a mystery if you haven't seen it yet on what Brooklyn's favorite part is.
Yeah.
So what did you think about, because you liked the first one, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't like the first one? The first one's great.
That's like one of the best ones, even though they were trying to think, oh, how are we going to do this?
Mm-hmm. What, did you get any like emotion feels? Did you feel good about the returning cast?
Kind of. I mean, they could have done way better. It's very sloppy. They could have done it more like the third or the fourth or the first or second.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious because you said you're going to rate it higher than me, and I don't want you to tell me yet, but I want to kind of gauge where you place each and every movie. Why don't you rank from best to worst the Jurassic Park movies?
First is The Fallen Kingdom. And then second is Jurassic Park. And then third is Jurassic World. And then fourth is The Lost World. And then fifth is Jurassic Park 3. And then the last one is the newer one.
Oh, Dominion?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dominion is last on the list for you. Okay. And you know what? I think our list would have something in common. So my list would be, of course, Jurassic Park would be the best. Jurassic World, to me, did a fantastic job on reinventing the franchise and added just the right touch of nostalgia. That one's second on me. And then I go with The Lost World, then A Fallen Kingdom, then here comes the drum roll. 2 left. So I will go with, I'm going to give it a little bit of credit. I'm going to go with Dominion next, and Jurassic Park 3 at the bottom of the list.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, and here's the reason why. I know Jurassic Park 3 has a following. Some people like Jurassic Park 3, and I didn't dislike it, but it didn't really add anything to the franchise. It didn't really move the story along. It was just kind of an individual movie there. You could take out Jurassic Park 3, and it wouldn't affect the movie storyline at all. And that's why I'm putting it at the very least. It's an entertaining movie, Jurassic Park 3. And I'm kind of surprised you put Fallen Kingdom on there, because didn't you get scared and have to go to the lobby?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But I still liked it. Yeah. I just got scared because there's a lot of jump scares to me.
Yeah.
I was literally 5.
Hey, I got to give you credit. You weren't 5, by the way.
Oh.
I think you were like 8. But that's okay. You were too. But I think you did pretty good, because that was your first Jurassic Park movie I think you saw in theater. So I think you did pretty good. Overall, Brooklyn, when you look at Jurassic World Dominion, that's at the bottom of your list.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 4 stars, what would you give it?
Like a 3.
Give it a 3? Okay. Man, if you're giving Dominion 3 and that's at the bottom of your list, does every other Jurassic Park get a 4?
Yeah. Pretty much.
All right. Well, I take that over Dominion any day. So... Brooklyn, how about this? How about you come back on the show next week where we can review the new Buzz Lightyear movie?
Okay.
Are you game to come back next week?
Why not?
So I want to thank Brooklyn for coming on the show and giving her take on Jurassic World Dominion. Again, I'm giving it 2 stars. Brooklyn's giving it 3 stars. But Brooklyn, thanks for coming on the show. We'll see you next week. Or actually, I'll see you at bedtime. It's bedtime.
Yeah.
Go brush your teeth.
Okay. Bye.
That's a cut for this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you haven't yet, make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show. Leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, stay for the credits to show respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film. Until next week, we will see you at the movies.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show, or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.